director, and David Chase. And before we get started, I should mention that we have a couple of other special guests in the audience who should stand up and take a bow, which is Mr. David Proval and Ms. Drea Di Matteo. Well, it's interesting to be sitting in this century-old movie palace, having just watched these two episodes on the big screen when this is a show made for a medium that was, for much of its life, denigrated as being less than cinema, being the quote-unquote small screen. And I think I'm probably not alone in feeling that watching these two episodes today here only cements the fact that this show can hold its own with anything made for any screen of any size in the last 25 years. But there is kind of an interesting tension in your career, David, of having gone to film school, wanting to make films, working in TV for 20 odd years, and then seeing The Sopranos as a lifeline to making movies, originally thinking of it as a movie. Can you talk a little bit about what it was you wanted to do that you felt TV was limiting in some way, or that made you want to initially think of this as a movie before it ended up as a series?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm Protestant. So all that, I don't know anything about it. I'm Italian, but I'm Protestant. Well, TV was just so limited. It was limited in every way, actually. But mostly, I think I've gone down as saying I hated TV, but I didn't hate TV. Like we've talked about this a million times. I love The Twilight Zone and Twin Peaks, yeah. But wait a minute, I saw something last night that was great on the TV show. Anyway, what I hated, well, yeah, I hated the meetings were terrible, and you just couldn't. There was no spark. Every time in TV, network television, I'm talking about. They had some kind of I've said this before, but they had some kind of an instinct. So, like if you wrote something, the reason that you were excited about it, which is, that's what they went for. Even that's what they wanted you to take out. Even if it wasn't the main thing, but it was a secret that you had. This is about the closet behind the thing. See the closet? You can't do that. They always, they had an unerring sense for that. And what I always thought about it was, they cook all the vitamins out. You can have string beans, and then you can have string beans, movies, well, I guess, especially when I started seeing foreign movies, That was so different from anything, really. But even just American movies, it was just so, I don't know how to explain it. I really don't. So much more life in it. That's the thing. So much more life, yeah.
And were there certain rules you set for yourself, or kind of stylistic principles of how, when you were now going to do The Sopranos as a series, that it was going to be different from those other shows that even you'd worked on, or just what the norm was for series television at that time?
That's a good question. I don't know that I set any rules for myself, except, I mean, it's pretty obvious. There was no commercials, so that was going to change everything. Because, you know, you had 12 minutes or something for the first commercial, and then, I could see right away that it was going to change the pace of the show. And I also thought, which a lot of people didn't like, but I also thought, wow, we don't have to like race through this. We can go slow and take time with everything. And I want to have a different pace than network television. I mean, even, you know, if you, a cop show, you know, it's just, even the title sequences are like, da, 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 you know, it's just not, of course, this is kind of like that too. Pace is really what and language, of course.
And the recap.
What?
The recap.
Recap?
Yeah, I in network television, before every commercial, you had to remind people what was going on, and then when you came back, you had to remind them again, and that adds up to, I think you said like 6 pages of the script, basically.
Yeah, right.
Just because people went to the bathroom. Like, oh yeah, remember that guy that we were talking about? It was just like tough exposition, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You don't remember doing that? You never had to do that, never.
No.
I never wrote in 1 hour.
Well, the whole thing was about not spoon feeding the audience. I mean, that's really what it came down to, right? Was that, well, here's what it is. I think that in doing this show, we expected everybody in the audience to bring something to the table. That was it. We weren't talking down to the audience or, you know, kissing their ass or anything like that. We expected them, I guess, to pay attention, right?
And for Matthew and Terrence, you come to the show after it's already been on. I think Terry, you're joining the second season, and Matthew, it's season 4. So,
Season 4. I saw this episode. I binged it before it was possible. I got all the tapes when I started work, because we were starting season 5, and I watched them. Honestly, I watched 5 episodes in one night.
And you are both also refugees from network television, like David. Can you talk a little bit about just, you know, sort of what it was like first seeing the show, and then coming into it, sort of what your path was to it?
All right. My plan worked.
Thank you.
There was nothing like the show. There was nothing like it immediately. And I'm sitting here feeling like we're in a very similar moment right now, in the sense that television was a bummer. And I watch TV. I'm not like, there was no differentiation. I guess there was, people were like, you know, upstairs, downstairs, or, you know, they would admit that they watched, you know, 60 Minutes or something. There was some high-end TV on some level, but basically, I was working in TV, I worked in sitcom, that was coming to a close. We didn't know that. Most of the 1 hour actually was taken over. People don't remember this. First by the game shows, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? This is my early career. And then the next thing then was the 2020 48-hour shit. So basically from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, the prime time, there was nothing. It was ER. There was like, which was still exciting. And I consider that was like something I really loved seeing. And I liked Law and Order, but it's a formula. And still on the air. So there was like this old-fashioned sense of things, and then this show comes on, and everything in it is real. It is very violent, which you couldn't show on TV. The language is there, which you couldn't show on TV. I don't know any of these actors, 0 stars, nobody. They are these people. Lorraine was the only person that I'd seen before. So I'm like visiting my people every week. And, I've said this before, but my people have asked me when I went from sitcom to working for David, they're like, oh, wow, this must be so different than your old job. And I was like, no, it's exactly the same. I sit around in a room with a bunch of writers talking about The Sopranos all day.
My agent at the time sent me the pilot, didn't tell me anything about it, just said, I think you'll like this. Like everybody else, I thought it was about opera, and wondered why he sent it to me. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I was physically trembling midway through it. I'd never seen anything like it. These people reminded me of my neighbors. In fact, Tony Sirico was kind of from my neighborhood, which it just felt so unbelievably familiar. It felt so real. And I think I got so excited about even the possibility of being able to work on this. And for me, the path was Frank Rizzulli, who was one of the original people David hired. And he had actually given me my first job in a show he co-created. He introduced me to David, and it's a debt I'll never be able to repay. It was just like basically an audition. We met. I wrote a script basically just as a tryout. I guess he liked it, and was there for the next 5 years, 6 years.
And can you take us behind the curtain a little bit into kind of what the day-to-day atmosphere was like in the writer's room, aside from people talking about The Sopranos all the time?
Very different than a sitcom room, I can tell you that. Some of it I don't ever want to talk about, because it's mine. And I got that, we're in Long Island City, facing the 59th Street Bridge of the city, and I looked out the window a lot, which is great for a writer. The other thing is Terry and I would talk to each other a lot, and David would lay on the couch. And then my joke was that David would eventually get so sick that he would get up and write the entire story on the board. But there was a lot of bullshitting, and I do believe you were listening to us. And he had it, David, the fact that you I just remember working up a story and just to present it to him, especially the first season, because you never know. You never know how long the job's gonna last. And I told him the story, and he goes, that is a story.
If you didn't know we were working on the show, you wouldn't know what we were doing. It just sounded like a bunch of people bullshitting, telling stories. And eventually when you come to realize that is the show, that is the job. It was just literally, this happened to be one. You're really trying to silence me. I will not be silenced. I came here today to tell this story. A good example, that psychic story had actually been something that happened to me. I went to see a psychic very similar to that, and that became part of an episode. So you just tell stories, and sometimes Dave would even solicit things and say, like, what's the worst thing you ever did to somebody in a relationship? What are you most scared of? And that would get us talking about stuff, and you'd share things that eventually, sometimes somebody would tell a story, and then a month later they would call you up on a Sunday and say, what was that thing that happened with you and your friend? And then it would end up in something he wrote. But so he was listening to us, I know, because you never missed anything.